Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Believeland Brits podcast. Straight after this has just happened at Cleveland Browns Stadium.
Snap. Hopkins sweeps the leg. It's perfect. Cleveland takes the lead.
I don't know if anybody else was worried by the flag anywhere near as much as I was. Yeah, I'm seeing some nodding heads here with Owain and Shaun. Shaun, who said, and I quote, "Never in doubt." I think we'll get into that rather outrageous statement as we go through this live podcast here. For anyone who's joining us today, please, put in your comments and questions, things like that. We'll happily treat this as more of like a call in, a general convo. I don't think that we'll have any true analysis and analytics of the game really to go off of, because obviously it's still so fresh in our minds. We'll have a few thoughts, obviously, but this is the Believeland Brits podcast.
Boys, just the same old Browns. Garrett's going to get him, and he knocks the ball away. Caught by Donovan Peoples-Jones. Touchdown! He got it! He got Chubb. He's to the 30, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown! Wow, what a struggle. The way it should be, I guess. Brownies, here we go. Woo, woo. Here we go, Brownies.
Sorry, that was me trying to share it to some other Facebook pages, but I was too slow on the draw. Anyway, like I say, Cleveland coming out with the win 13-10 against the Pittsburgh Steelers to tie them in the division, to go just the one win away from the Ravens in the AFC North entire. Again, with me, Owain and Shaun. Keep your comments coming, guys, and your questions, etc. First of all, Shaun, that was a different sort of game than even we were thinking of, wasn't it, when we were talking on Friday night?
First half was what we thought. I thought the first half was really good, really good, but fair play to the Steelers and fair play to Mike Tomlin, as he always does, made some really good adjustments, and he made it really difficult in the second half. There's no doubt about that. But I've said it for how many weeks now, just have faith in this team. It just feels as though they will always be in, the game, coming down to the last play of the game one way or another. And at times it felt like it was slipping away. It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek when I said never in doubt. But I think the football gods owed us one. So, yeah, good to be on the right side of this one.
Absolutely. Owain, when it got down to like 5 minutes to go, was the belief sort of lingering at that point, or what?
A little bit, but I always thought if we had the last drive of the game and it was still even, I just thought Stefanski would have had enough plays left in there that he was confident with, that we could just, get 40 yards. And even if it was a longer field goal in the end, just get over the line. And DTR, man, set the balls on him.
Absolutely. I think that we'll just dive straight into that. So it was a game of two halves, wasn't it? Really, gents. You look at the first half. Shaun, like you say, very accomplished performance. I thought, at least. Going out there. It was a really well coached first half. I thought, especially on offense. You had the defense that you could rely on, and realistically, you thought that they'd scored points, and they gave it back in good positions for the offense. The offense is able to drive down with some, with a relative aplomb. They got 168 yards in the first half to Pittsburgh. So I think it was like 59 or something, or 64. It was quite disparate. Third down efficiency. For Pittsburgh, I think they converted 1 third down at that point as well, which meant that you're able to keep the ball ahead of you. Second half, though, the second half it just seemed to be the complete flip side, didn't it, Owain? I mean, you look at it, and apart from that one drive, it looked like there was nothing really happening for us at all. But like you say, last drive, the set of balls on DTR to do something which was either not asked of him in the first or the second half, or was just a case of I've got to do this now, and he just went out and did it.
Yeah, I thought he was incredible, mate. I thought that last drive, as you say, was just a thing of beauty, really. Obviously, the commentary team had sort of mentioned it quite a few times that a lot of the passes were at the line of scrimmage; they were into the flat. And obviously the first pass of that drive, he obviously pushed it down the field for what seemed like the first time in a while. I mean, it was only 15 yards, but compared to anything else we've been seeing, it was obviously a nice welcome relief. I think like I said, I think the Steelers did a really good job of adjusting. Don't get me wrong. So they did make it difficult. They are a tough defense. They are where they are on merit. As much as the offense just is useless, that defense has been number one in the league in takeaways. It puts pressure on the quarterback. It's got them over the line in many a game this season. It felt like it might have been another one that they were going to do the same trick again. I thought we struggled a little bit. I think Shaun in the comments has mentioned about the drops on the wide receiver front. And I think that's fair comment. I think, David Njoku actually had 15 targets just checking the box score. Felt like he was a big culprit in terms of the drops. And yeah, some of the balls were a little bit high. Couple of balls to Amari Cooper were sort of like on the back shoulder as opposed to hitting him in stride, which obviously, was part of the reason for the interception that was thrown. It was sort of behind Cooper, and obviously he couldn't adjust and bring it in. But on the whole, I think the receivers didn't really help DTR out either in the second half. So it was a slog. It was hard yards. There is absolutely no doubt about that. If you go back and you look at the play-by-play in terms of what the second half produced, it's certainly not pretty reading. It goes punt, interception, punt. It really wasn't, particularly pretty. But on the flip side of it, and I think this is where I said about just keeping the faith, I think we did what we seemingly always do on defense. We gave up a huge play. We gave up a 74-yard play. And then it just feels then that the tide's turning. But the reality is the Steelers did absolutely nothing for the rest of the second half, really. They had one that they moved the ball to some extent, and it felt like, maybe the defense are getting a bit gassed. It was a 13-play drive that ended in a field goal. But realistically, outside of the big play, it was a field position game, which we said it was going to be. And ultimately, the Browns defense made enough plays down the stretch to give the offense enough opportunities. And like you've already said, DTR really was clutching that final drive when he needed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And something which you just touched on there is something which I want to bring in. So just looking at the team stats here. So the Steelers have continued their run of being outgained in every single game this season. This time only by 10 yards. It was 259 to 249 in the end. Passing yards 163 to 77. The rushing yards 96 to 172. And obviously, the Steelers, their big time player was Jaylen Warren. He mainly on the ground, 9 carries for 129 yards. Now, obviously, you take away that 74-yard run, and it becomes more like 8 for 55 odd. But you felt like the Steelers in the second half, because let's face it, pretty much all of their yards were in the second half. In the second half, the Steelers could do what they wanted on the ground. It was probably because of the fact that the defense was pretty tired. You can't. The defense made its stops, of which is exactly what we needed them to do. And they did it often, but it was a bend not break towards the end of that game, wasn't it, Owain? I mean, you look at it and you think if the offense, and as we look ahead, the offense needs to be able to stay on the field for longer, because you can't rely on the defense being able to stop defenses. About what did it end up being? I think they were on the field it's saying third down efficiency 3 for 14 here, but punts 9, so 10, 11 drives 12 drives, actually, I think it was in the end. So, 12 drives is quite a lot to sustain, especially when there's quite a lot of plays within those as well.
Yeah, but I think some of the Browns' offensive struggles today, are something we talked about as a result of learning from the first game. Because if you remember, we go back to the first game and everyone after the game is screaming for more conservative play calls. If we need to punt, we punt. And then the Steelers just haven't got enough offense to threaten our defense. And I think a lot of it was probably just being overly conservative, not wanting to give the ball away. And I think we will probably see some deeper balls, next week. We'll see some double moves and stuff in there. In the next couple, I thought there was a ton of chances for DTR to actually keep read options, and he would have gained a bunch of yards because they were biting on the running back every time, and DTR seemed to roll out into nobody the whole time, and he didn't keep one all day, which I was quite surprised about. So I think there's plenty of promise there going forward on offense. Elijah Moore played really well today, I thought, outside of one drop maybe in the first half. I don't expect Njoku to play that badly again in a hurry. So I think it was really encouraging on offense. Defense played lights out again. And we said sort of going into this game, didn't we? If they could nick 1 year, the pressure was completely off as they go on the road 2 games in a row now.
Yeah.
Pressure's off. Go enjoy these next 2 games and see if you can nick another and go to 8-3, 8-4. Because there's a chance, that it's only the Broncos, it's only the Rams, so there's no reason why not. And it's just fun, man. It's just fun watching this team. They never give up. They're always in it to the very end. And like I said, DTR, when he needed to show up, when Stefanski needed him to show up right at the end, he just had the bollocks to rip those throws. It could have been so easy for him just to...
I mean, how many times have we seen this story before where someone, winds up one of those throws, it goes straight to a safety?
Yeah, but not even that. I think it would have been easy for him to continue to do what he's done all half and just check the ball down, keep the clock running, make sure the Steelers haven't got a chance to come back and then, go to overtime and see what happens in overtime. But he didn't. He chose to come out and throw some aggressive passes. And I just thought, yeah, what a drive for him right at the end. And he showed some promise today, I think. Obviously, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but he showed some promise. Didn't get his legs involved all that much as well, and he showed that he could do that at times. So, yeah, this season's not dead. This season's not dead.
I'd say that. Just bringing in a question, by the way, guys, for anyone that's listening live, please do put in some questions just for us to thrash out. We are unplanned on this one. I'm just going on emotion, Google stats, and what you guys put in the comments. So, Spencer, do we roll with DTR now or bring in a QB? Does the final drive mean it will probably result in us rolling with DTR? Just for my 2 pence, let's have a look at his stats for the game. So 24 completions from 43, so just above 500, 165 yards, 1 interception, 3 carries for 20 yards on top. Obviously, that drive when he was allowed to be a bit more and also when he didn't have the luxury of checking down as well. Let's call it the luxury of checking down, because there was probably some moves where he could have thrown it, but he probably didn't have the confidence to do so. Shaun, I don't know about you, but I'm inclined to agree with Owain here that if you consider the pressure being off the next couple of games, this is where he can settle in a bit more, see what he can do. In a non-division role against defenses that aren't as good as the Steelers, and who are not likely to be able to adjust the way that the Steelers defense did today, because DTR did really well in the first half. It was the second half when the Steelers adjusted. That's when the problems started coming. So I think that we'll probably end up sticking with DTR down the stretch.
For me, I think DTR's final drive probably rubber stamps what was already a decision that was made anyway. I don't think he did anything in the game that suggested they were going to look elsewhere. The production slowed down in the second half, but DTR, to me, executed the game plan that was called. And yes, it was ultra conservative. At times, if I'm being critical, it probably felt too conservative. But I think obviously they learned from week 2, where let's not forget in week 2 we lost to the Steelers when we would lead in the fourth quarter, and they had negative yardage in that quarter. We didn't hurt ourselves today. There was a couple of times that, like Owain said, I think looking back at the film, he might be able to push the ball down the field if he's given, a bit more of a leash, if you like. But I think the simple message this week was, don't lose this game. It was huge in terms of the tiebreaker implications. It was huge in terms of any desires you've still got to win in the division. The result on Thursday night essentially meant that, for me, you've got to keep pace with the Ravens now. And essentially that's effectively where we are now. Is the Ravens obviously one of the teams still not to have their bye week as of yet. But I thought DTR showed some promise and some poise. And I think that's the key thing. It's the poise that he showed, particularly in that final drive. I'd love to know what on earth happened with the Browns calling a timeout with 20 seconds to go. I just assumed, and I think everybody just assumed, that Cam Hayward was down and the officials had called a timeout and were going to force the Steelers to use theirs. And when they said the Browns have called a timeout, I was like, nah. Why on earth would the Browns call a timeout? They did, but still showed enough poise, because you knew the Steelers were going to try and get all over the ball, and they were going to make it difficult for whoever was going to run the rock. They were only ever going to run it, but you showed enough poise to get up, get the line set, get the spike done. I know it sounds like simple stuff, but ultimately this was a guy with so much pressure on his shoulders, and he went out there and he executed. And we said the same thing with Watson last week when the game was on the line. He showed calmness, he showed poise, and he went out there and delivered. And that's what you want from your quarterback. This defense will keep us competitive in every game. And I think DTR will keep the offense competitive. And I think the only way he's up, which is the encouraging thing, I think it will improve from this.
Yeah, just something on that on that resetting. It definitely wasn't easy, because the Steelers, and this is something which I think is just taught in the Mike Tomlin school of, win by any means necessary. The way that they just kept the pile upright for that Kareem Hunt run right at the end, in order to prevent a whistle from actually blowing the play dead, and then them just piling on afterwards. I thought there was a fumble. I actually thought there was a fumble in the middle of that pile, and then by the time it all got sorted out, somehow a ref had touched the ball so that we could actually get the spike in. But I was it was clever playing. It's the sort of play that you expect from the Steelers. Spencer, I'm glad that you agree as well. I'm glad I'm not the only man that had his heart out of his chest at that point. I tell you what, let's shift away from the offense and look at the defense, because I think that we could say a lot about the offense. Obviously, I think that we will do as we look towards the previews for our next, probably for every game going forward. Want to give a massive shout out to Shelby Harris first of all. I thought that he was awesome today on the defensive line, and also to Okoronkwo as well. I felt like those two players were always there, of which they're not the two names that you expect. You see that JOK 6 tackles, Grant Delpit 6 tackles, Shoni Taki I thought did immensely well with the green dot once Walker had to go off with a hamstring concern. Obviously, the Myles Garrett 2 sacks today, which was actually outgaining TJ Watt's 1 sack, and you'd argue that's against better tackles as well. So all that going on, but Owain, as I stop you from downing the rest of what I assume is orange juice, there were the individual performances today on that defense that shows you that while the momentum may have swung away at some points, there were some outstanding single moments in there that makes you think that any given play could be for anything. There were key sacks, key tackles, all the rest of it coming from all over the field.
Yes, it is a sensational defense, isn't it? I think we will see the defense having some bad games this year, because I think it's natural, but so far it's just been consistently excellent for the most part. And it's so complementary, because at times, like, the defensive line has to help the corners out, and the corners can be more aggressive as a result of the defensive line getting home quicker. And then there was times today where the opposite was true, where the coverage held up, especially on the second Myles Garrett sack. Coverage holds up long enough, and then it allows Myles to get home. And that's what we've been crying out for years, I think, is a complementary defense, and not just one side a hell of a lot stronger than the other, because we've seen it doesn't really work, one without the other. So phenomenal. Yeah, phenomenal. And like you said, like, a lot of the best performances, I think, came from players that are not necessarily household names on this team today. Okoronkwo, like you mentioned, was huge. Shelby Harris was huge. Offensively, Elijah Moore was very good.
Yeah.
And I thought, actually, something I noticed on the last drive, DeJuan Jones wasn't in consistently at all.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're going to say. Yeah.
But on that last drive, he was in the whole time. And he locked TJ Watt up every single time he was rushing him. And, that contributed to the confidence that DTR must have had to be able to rip those balls at the end, knowing that TJ Watt wasn't getting close enough to him to cause any problems. So hats off to AB. I know sometimes we can get in the weeds with, he's found a diamond in the rough in the fourth round, because at the end of the day, AB passed on him a couple of times before that as well. But to be able to take a player of that caliber in the fourth round, and on a contract that's going to be hellish valuable for the Browns over the next 3 years, to have that bookend tackle that's just going to hold up in pass pro all the time. I couldn't give a monkeys about his run blocking, to be honest, because we are a team
just rush to the other side, sod it.
Yeah, and we are going to be a more pass heavy team over the next coming years. And I thought that was really noticeable when he came in today, and the difference he made. So again, a lot of great performances today. Myles Garrett again, but I thought today was a day for the unrecognised Browns players to come through in the clutch.
Yeah, definitely. I like the fact that you brought up the DeJuan Jones thing. It's something which I noticed. It was as soon as Hudson had 2 bad plays in a row, so he was the one that gave up the penalty. The only Cleveland Browns penalty of the entire game, which I think is some sort of record for the Browns. We had 1 penalty for 10 yards.
I thought, by the way, sorry to cut you off, but I thought, by the way, that was a cruel piece of officiating from that ref, to say that it was a defensive penalty and then, change his mind and call it on the offense. To be fair,
yeah.
brave man, because if that's me making the mistake, I'm just riding the mistake. I'm just giving it to the defense, and I'm not challenging however many thousand people that are in that stadium.
I think the stadium was still celebrating. That was the problem. They'd heard that and gone, yes, and that's it. But I think everyone on the TV is like hurling furniture at the screen. But I don't think the stadium actually noticed until we were marching backwards.
Brave man.
Really cruel. But then after that is when Hudson pretty much let Watt straight through for his only sack. So I think that after those 2, they thought, right, gassed. Let's see if the one can just stay in for just this little bit. And, it ended up being a marvel of a move. DeJuan Jones just consummate professional at that point. And those are the kind of performances you're going to remember them for. Coming in at those moments, tackles don't get the recognition that they deserve, like absolutely deserve. I feel like the Browns are one of the few fan bases and teams that actually really recognize tackles, mainly because of Joe Thomas. And he came up clutch there against TJ Watt, who had very limited success, even with Hudson, because DTR getting the ball out so early as well. And here's something of which will be popular. So DTR, knowing that TJ Watt was such a big threat, 2.2 seconds was his time to throw in the first half. It's what teams do against us with Myles Garrett. We're playing smart football. It's smart, well-coached football. Owain, you keep saying to me, people who go on about Kevin Stefanski being a bad coach, now, don't look at things like that. They just look at, they look at the big, the big down calls on offense, for example, and think that that's it. But it's stuff like that that truly matters. So seeing that go forward is going to be big.
Something that I think you can be critical of Stefanski for over the years, and it's one of the only things I think is his decision to challenge plays. I think I would have thought that his percentage is pretty low when it comes to that. However, today, by the sounds of it, he's actually made 3 really good ones, and I say 3 really good ones. We only saw 2, but apparently he did challenge the safety in the first half, and apparently the flag was on the field and it was just not acknowledged that he challenged it.
Don't tell me that.
I don't know whether that's true, but I have seen that floating about on Twitter from what I'm assuming is someone in the stadium. So that's kind of mad. The Steelers keep getting these strokes of luck. But as well as that, so the Pickett one, apparently there's also a rule as soon as the helmet comes off, that's classed as down. If it's, well, I don't know whether if it's any player, or just a QB. But apparently as soon as the helmet comes off, that's where the ball should have been spotted. So that may be why he challenged that one as well. And if that rule is true, the Browns got screwed twice in this game. And Spence, no, I haven't been drinking, mate. I don't drink, so this is.
I was going to say that's the last thing that he can be accused of. I'm afraid Owain definitely has not been drinking. It is strictly orange squash that he's been drinking out of that jar.
But it's really interesting to if those 2 things are true. Again, we talked last week about, wouldn't it be nice to see a Browns team that everything just goes right for a weekend, and see what the result of that is?
Yeah.
Well,
I think we have. I put it this way. I think this year, I think that we've seen more luck on like the decisions than we have in previous years. There's definitely that. I'm definitely not going to. I'm definitely not going to bemoan some of the decisions that we've had when we've had 2 dubious calls win us 2 games. When we had PJ Walker under center. So I'm going to let that slide now, especially when we still won. So I tell you what, I've got a handful of because I'm conscious that we're getting towards the half hour mark, and it is a school night, and I've had a few. So first of all, would you have challenged both of those safeties? Yeses and no's from both of you. Would you have challenged both of them?
I didn't see a great. I don't want to incriminate myself, but perhaps I think you could call it shouldn't have been watching the first probably 5 minutes of that game. I'm not going to get into why, but
God, that just makes it more incriminating. Just say you were late.
But I would have challenged the first one because I thought it was a safety at the time, and the replay only confirmed that I thought it was a safety. I didn't get a great look on the second one though.
Yeah, Shaun.
Yeah, I think the first one, but it sounds like potentially he did, or whether that's been made up, we'll wait and see. But it obviously sounds as though he did. So yeah, I thought the first one was. We didn't really get a replay at all during the broadcast, did we? For the second one, it felt as though the second one must have been, because it was seemingly quite a deep drop from under centre and a handoff in the backfield, and it felt like he'd got to get 4 or 5 yards to get back to the line of scrimmage. It just felt like he didn't get there, but we obviously never got a real clear replay of it. I didn't like the call on the spot. I thought Pickett was blown dead before. I know there's that one angle where he appears 2 yards further down the field. Yeah, well, that's all well and good, but I'm pretty sure that the whistle had gone by that stage. So, yeah, look, it's a game of inches. I think coming back to your point on the decisions overall, I think they always said, and you make your own luck in this game. when this team makes its own look, they fight hard, they're in every play. They'll give up the odd one because they are ultra aggressive. They take a bad angle because they're trying to get the ball out or whatever the case might be. That's what happened on the one touchdown. I thought, it was well into the play, but I thought Martin Emerson took just an horrendous angle to try and cut him off. He was like, that's not bothered. But I'd much, I'll take a bad play a game. Obviously, rather it didn't happen, but I'll take a bad play a game to get the defense that we're getting. So, they play hard, they fight hard, they make their own look.
Yeah. Also, I refuse to bemoan a defense that only concedes 10 points. I don't care who the offense is. If you're telling me that we need to score 11 points a game to win a game of football in the NFL, I will take it every day of the week. I will bite your hand off, tooth and nail, every single time. So just on that for me as well. So I would have challenged both safeties because they were safeties. Like, it's ridiculous. I think that Lou has learned the safety rule to death from the ode to safeties that I gave. Strangely, I wouldn't have challenged the touchdown that we did challenge and win, and I wouldn't have challenged the Pickett one either. Just because I felt like we didn't get across the line, and then I thought that Pickett, I just knew that they'd give that because same old Steelers. So that's a thing. One more thing before I come to my stupid question of the week, Shaun. This one's for you. Spencer, I'm glad that you wouldn't have challenged as well. I feel like me and you would get on well. Shaun, one for you. Special teams. Now, I've never met a man who has loved the kicking positions as much as you. And once again, I mean, this season, everything just seems to come together. And, today was just another example of that, wasn't it? I mean, Corey Bajorquez, outside of one boot, was perfect and kept the Steelers in coffin corner for the entire game. And again, and you're starting to see that it's a lot more than just the kicking as well on special teams. Something special is coming together here, and the importance of that is obviously huge.
Yeah, I'm a big special teams fan. I just think the NFL is so tight in terms of the teams, and it's a phase of the game that nobody ever discusses because everybody says, "Oh, how does this offense match up against this defense?" and so on and so forth. And quite often, teams are evenly matched in the NFL. That's the way it's designed to be. And often the special teams can be the real difference maker. We talked about James Prochet. Yeah, he had his fumble against the Ravens. He's been sure-handed every time he's signaled for a fair catch since, and he had a really decent return again today, which just flips the field and makes such a huge difference. But Hawkins, I think, has been immense. As much as we all wanted Jamie Gillan to work out, and there was a lot of hype, and obviously being from the UK and all the rest of it, just to have somebody that consistently, as you say, pins teams back. I mean, it was like every punt seemingly today, the Steelers return guy must have either set himself up too far up the field or something. He was seemingly backpedaling 10, 15 yards from where he'd set himself up before he could even make the catch.
That was another correction in the second half.
Yeah. And we can't say enough about Dustin Hopkins, can we? I mean, I know it's only a 34-yarder. I say only a 34-yarder. We've seen 34-yarders missed. It was right down the middle. Absolutely, straight down the middle. There was no threat of it hooking left this week or anything like that, like last week's game winner. How many is that he's kicked now? Game winners? 3, 4? At least 3 I can remember. There's probably more than that.
That's some homework. Is it 3 or 4?
Yeah, well, two weeks in a row, that's for sure. And obviously, you got the.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it wasn't the game-winning play at the time, but obviously the San Francisco one ultimately he sort of kicked us over the line there, and whatever
and
else.
The Colts as well, I think. Yeah. Although
look, he's just
Oh.
There's a technical issue for you on a Sunday night. I went on mute and Josh has disappeared altogether. I think just coming back to what I was saying about Hopkins, I don't know what happened there, mate. Just coming back to what I was saying about Hopkins, I was critical about giving up capital after we'd been criticised for giving up capital to bring in Cade York. but he's been absolutely awesome, hasn't he? Absolutely awesome. I'm sorry, fellas, I need to hold my hands up now as well. I didn't put it in the group chat, but I'm another £50 richer with that last minute kick as well, because that was another 7-point day for Dustin Hopkins. So it's more
I need to know
easy
who
money.
you guys bet with. I need to know who you guys bet with for the kicker ones. I can never find them.
More easy money, mate.
Paddy
Bet 365. Yeah, more easy money.
Okay.
So yeah. But no, mate, it's been great to answer your question directly. Absolutely fantastic, and it really is proving to be a difference maker in these close games. So yeah. Was any genuine question? Were either of you worried when he lined up to kick it? Because I certainly wasn't.
There was an anxious part of me that will always exist because I am a Browns fan. But no, I was relatively confident. But I refuse to be fully confident. The day I am fully confident is the day it fucks up.
I think there was no worries for me whatsoever, but I think it was more because, like, if he missed, we still had overtime left.
Fair.
I think last week was a bit different. If he missed, we'd lost. So, there was
okay. Yeah, no, I can understand that. I just think I'm too scared. I go back to must have been in like 2015, 2016 maybe, when we were lining up for a game-winning field goal, or some kind of, it would have taken us well above home against the Ravens one time, and then they came back, scored it, and won the game off it.
The Monday night football kick 6.
Yes, that's the one.
Remember it well.
Yeah, and I think that's just haunted me ever since. So I was as confident as I allowed myself to be. I'll put it there. 86% chance now for the Browns to make the playoffs, according to ESPN. So the question here is, how far can we go? And you know what? I'm going to be kinder, because realistically, I think we're all in the boat of, if we make the playoffs, then anything can happen. But do you see us in the playoffs at this point? Or I tell you what, playoffs, yes or no? Division win, yes or no?
Oh,
I mean, I'll go first if you want.
Yeah,
I'll go first. So playoffs, yes. I think that we'll make it to at least 10 at this point. You're basically asking if we win 3 games out the next 7. But division, no. I think that the Ravens will have too much, especially if Lamar stays healthy. If Lamar suddenly ended up being a case of if he comes back on Tuesday, I think they report and say that, then that could change things. But the way that the Ravens are playing at the moment, I don't see it, and I don't think I'd necessarily be surprised if the Ravens lost another game either, the way they're going. So, I mean, I can't think of what their fixture list is like at the moment, but if they end,
it's not easy. They've got.
Oh, is it not easy?
They're away at the Chargers.
That's easy.
Is it though? I feel like they always have a chance of winning.
But they always have a chance of winning. But that's like saying that the Steelers always have a chance of winning.
The Steelers.
So okay, they've got the Chargers, and Chargers are going to charge you. They've got the Rams, of which, realistically, the AFC North team should be getting past them. And yeah, okay, I've just looked at the 3 games after that. Okay, so let's say 1, 2. Let's say they beat the Steelers there as well. So 3. That brings them to. Okay, that brings them to 10. That's interesting.
They're only winning 2 of those games.
If they only win half of those games, that becomes interesting.
They're only beating the Rams and the Steelers.
Oh, so you think the Chargers are going to beat the Ravens?
The Chargers are going to beat the Ravens.
I mean, I hope you're right. I just no. It's my anxiety is leaving, but I feel like that's giving me new anxiety. I haven't even got over this yet. Sean, deliver me from this evil. Playoffs, division.
I'm going to say yes, we make the playoffs. In fact, I go as far as to say I'd almost be disappointed if we don't make the playoffs now from the position that we've put ourselves into. I think we've put ourselves into a really strong position. I think the Bears is a layup. I think, although they played the Lions hard today, I think the Bears is a layup, particularly by the time we get another 3 or 4 games off the schedule. I think the Jets is a layup at home as well, because I think the Jets will be well and truly out of anything by then. You can forget all this Aaron Rodgers talk, so that would get the Browns to 9. You're probably looking for one more there. And to be honest, looking at it, it may well come in the next 2 weeks. In terms of the division, I think the encouraging thing for me is we know how good this defense is, and as I said earlier, I think we know now that's the flaw for this defense in terms of it'll keep games tight. I'd like to see a few more takeaways. I think that the one difficulty when you keep forcing 3 and outs is obviously you don't get many opportunities for big plays and takeaways. I'd like to see a few more takeaways. That's probably the only thing, if you were being hyper critical. You'd like to see the defense take the ball away a bit more as well as limit the opposition. But I think the defense will have us right there. We've certainly got an easier schedule, and I do think the offense will get better. I look at the rest of the teams that we've got on the schedule. We've certainly now played all of the best defenses. Broncos are having a little bit of a resurgence. Be interesting to see how they go tonight against Minnesota. I think a win for the Broncos is really interesting because then they're riding a 3 or 4 game winning streak. But I'm dancing around the issue, mate. I'll put my neck on the line and I'll say, yes, we certainly make the playoffs. And I'll also say that the Browns win the division.
Oh, and I'm judging by the fact that you're the one that made the argument in the first place. You're also going that way as well with a yes and yes.
I'm scared, but yeah. And by the way, just to answer Phil, the Ravens-Chargers game not out on.
It won't be out until Tuesday, I imagine. Any of the odds. We will be interested as well. I'll be interested to see what the score is on that.
Dustin Hopkins over 5.5.
So it won't be 5.5 next week. So.
No, they'll realise there's only 2 people betting that line every week, and they're just making bank every week.
Long may it continue, mate. Long may it continue.
You know what? We're just going to have to change the pod name to Hopkins over 5.5 plus until they eventually end up doing that. But no, fantastic. And last thing, because we're getting on to 45 now. How much did it suck that Sky Sports NFL decided to show the flipping Steelers watch party in Dublin? In Dublin, first of all, I don't care what's going on in Ireland, But to show that during a Steelers-Browns game, I mean, I can only think of it from a footballing perspective, where if they were showing Villa Blues, for example, and they only showed a flipping Blues hangout and they constantly went back to them and constantly kept blowing smoke up their ass, it infuriated me, if I'm quite honest with you.
As a proud Welsh person, I've grown quite used to this type of treatment when it comes to sporting events over the past 27 years of my life. So,
God, a man of only 27 years growing that mustache.
But no, in all seriousness, I hate it when we're on Sky. I know a load of Browns fans hate it when we're on Sky, but I just think the coverage is rubbish. I don't think we even got to see the first safety live, did we? No, I don't.
We didn't see the touchdown announcement. The touchdown.
No, we don't. I don't think we've seen the safety as well. I'm sure they were.
No, the safety was. The safety was live. You were doing whatever undisclosed thing that you said that you were doing. Of which, by the way, the WhatsApp chat is going to be blowing up between us 3 now because I have a number of theories.
It's and really in fact, to be honest with you.
At Believeland Brit on Twitter /X for any wild accusations you want to throw Owain's way.
I promise you.
But no, we definitely got to see that. I actually think that the coverage itself was all right. It was just the constant blowing the smoke up the.
I really don't like. Is it
Steelers?
Neil? Is that his name?
Neil Reynolds.
Yeah, I really don't enjoy his coverage. So him being on every single one of them kind of takes the joy.
Yeah, him
out of
being
it.
the presenter kind of steals
Yeah.
your joy then. You know, him being
Mhm.
the face of Sky Sports NFL means you're never going to
Yeah, it's
enjoy
kind of
Sky
tough for
Sports
me.
NFL. Yeah, just a bit. But I thought that Jason Bell brought it back anyway. Right, folks, that will do us. We will be back later on in the week. I imagine it will probably be a Friday night to preview the next game. We're at Denver next.
Two
Yeah.
late ones next week, yeah. 9:05 and 9:25 the next 2 weeks on the West Coast, aren't we? So,
So we
two late ones.
definitely won't be doing a post pod directly after
No,
those.
don't rule it out. Don't
roll it out. He says. I mean, if I'm going to do that, it will be in whispers. We'll have to do a Believe and Whisper podcast.
I'll go outside if we back the Broncos. I'll go do it on a beach. I don't care.
I'll go and fly over to Croke Park, mate. We'll just do it from there instead.
Oh, goodness. Anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. We've really enjoyed the comments and that coming through. Be sure to listen to that preview pod as it comes out next week. And until then, enjoy your Victory Monday, everyone. We are the Believe in Brits podcast. And I tell you what, instead of the nice little jingle, let's leave with this instead.
Snap. Hopkins sweeps the leg. It's perfect.